Welcome to episode 6 of the G2 on 5G. I'm Will Townsend, senior analyst with More Insights and Strategy that covers networking infrastructure and carrier services. And with me is Anshul Sag that covers mixed reality as well as a whole host of other topics. This week is very somber for obvious reasons, so we're going to change the focus of our podcast. We're going to talk about use cases related to 5G that can facilitate greater good and public safety and social inclusion. The two topics that I'm going to talk about are going to center around public safety and crowdsourced journalism. And then Anshul will address streaming services as well as mixed reality applications. So let me start with public safety. I spent a lot of time with AT&T and Verizon in particular, and I've seen proof of concepts around smart cameras that can be deployed for public safety. Remember, one of the killer aspects of 5G is extreme low latency and very, very high throughput. It also supports very, very low power. So as 5G networks deploy, municipalities can take advantage of deploying wireless cameras that, again, don't require a hard connection and can benefit from the extreme low latency and fast throughput. And what that equates to is near real-time, high-definition video. And this can serve public safety. We're seeing, unfortunately, looting that is going on, this week. And, these cameras could be placed very flexibly and allow law enforcement to better monitor the situation and deploy the appropriate resources. So very, very impactful use case. The second is around something that's called crowdsourced journalism. And the thought is that, as individuals carrying 5G enabled smartphone devices, tablets, whatnot, as news is breaking, you can use these devices and theoretically stream live, again, very high definition video. And there may be news outlets that would receive that information, and then that could be broadcast, very quickly. Today, when news breaks, these TV stations, they have to roll trucks with cameras and put reporters in the field and that sort of thing. And there's obviously a lag to that. So I believe that that's going to be a very compelling use case. And as we get to more ubiquitous 5G deployment and device saturation, I think you're going to start seeing that model of journalism evolve. I know, Anshul, you're going to talk about streaming, which is a nice segue to that. What are your thoughts around kind of the future of video streaming in a 5G world?
So I guess I'll just start my two topics. I have a lot of thoughts on the live streaming aspect of things. Technically speaking, a lot of people don't realize it, but current 5G networks operate using 5G for download and 4G for upload. So right now, even if you have a 5G phone, for the most part, you don't even actually realize the benefits of 5G. And one of the big benefits of 5G is actually being able to upload a lot faster, because there's more spectrum available. And like if you were to use millimeter wave in more densely populated areas, which is where a lot of protests are happening right now, the reality is the millimeter wave signal would actually allow you to upload way faster. Because, for example, Verizon just flipped on their 5G upload, which they currently didn't have until now. And they increased upload speed by 30%, which is a huge jump, which means, it allows people to not only take a video and upload it quickly, but also to be able to live stream at a much more consistent quality, because they're able to get a better bit rate because they have access to more spectrum, even if people are streaming at the same time. This is a very common issue that a lot of people are having right now when it comes to, live streaming protests or even being at like a sporting event, which no one's at right now. But the reality is, if you have these faster upload speeds, you're able to do a lot more. And if you have more spectrum to do it with, people are crowding it less. So as a result, you can have people uploading to Instagram. You can have people live streaming on Facebook or live streaming on Instagram. You can have people take videos and then upload them to YouTube. And it can be done in seconds as opposed to minutes or hours, especially if their network is really overloaded. And that's kind of a thing that I think a lot of people really don't understand is with 5G, the extra capacity that you have is so vast that you're able to serve way more customers at the same time, which
Yeah.
means speeds at the heaviest of load are higher because you're serving more people more quickly. So even all things equal, 5G is going to handle, you know, it's going to handle people way better than 4G did, just because most of the 5G spectrum is in higher bands with more spectrum available. And I think it was Sasha Segan from PC Mag actually said that he was getting 50% higher upload speeds on
Wow.
Verizon as
Yeah.
opposed to 30%, which is still an unbelievable amount. And I just think that what's going to end up happening, and I kind of saw this, in Southern California where I live. I've been paying attention to what's been going on. I even attended one of the protests yesterday, and it's just really interesting because what you see on the news is not really reflective of what you see happening in social media. So
Right.
you have like a disconnect between what's happening, what's really happening in real time, and what the news decides to cover. And
Right.
and that's just a natural disconnect between what traditional media can handle in terms of the resources they have available to them
Right.
and what
Yeah.
technology they have available to them.
Yeah.
And it kind of leans back to your whole idea of crowdsourced journalism,
Mhm.
because I don't think you can. Crowdsourced journalism has been tried many times, and crowdsourced journalism has been tried. Not even journalism, just crowdsourced content creation. Like at concerts, there was a
Yeah.
platform where it was like 100 people attend a concert and everyone has the app. They can all create their own videos and it will automatically generate from all angles, a different experience. And I think
Right.
that can be something similar for public news and events where you can have maybe 10 people who are already on the scene videotaping it live or recording their own angle of the event.
Right.
And with 5G location services, you can have a very accurate pinpoint of who was there and who wasn't there, which I think is also something to consider because in this era of fake news,
Yeah.
being able to dispel who really is and isn't there is a big deal.
Sure.
And fake news goes both ways. So it's like,
Oh yeah.
it's an issue. And I think 5G can potentially, help us there. There are apps like TruePic out there that, validate if you take a photo, use blockchain to basically verify that you are actually where you say you are and
Right.
you took the picture you said you took. But I think fundamentally with 5G, location is an important aspect and uploads are a huge thing because 4G is a lot better than 3G. I think everybody agrees about that. But the
Mhm.
uploads don't really feel much better. They're better, but they're not like life changing. And I think
Yeah.
5G's upload may actually be one of those things where it really changes the way we use our devices.
Yeah.
And I think that if you think about like the fact that most operators can focus on download speeds when it comes to consumers, and they focus on really just upping the download. For example, if you have home broadband service, right, you can get a gig over copper now, but your
Mhm.
upload is still maybe max 100.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, me on fiber, I'm getting a gig both directions.
Yeah.
So I think that there's I would love for us to see a gig like experience on 5G, and I think it's possible.
We'll get there.
Obviously, there isn't enough spectrum on the low end to make that possible, or on the upload end, but there's way more than there was before. With 5G, especially millimeter wave, there's more spectrum on the upload than there was on the download for 4G.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I think that's a huge component of it.
Yeah.
And
And I think
yeah,
not to interrupt you, but don't forget, the 5 millisecond latency level, as well as 5G inherently by its architectural design can support more devices and it's lower power, right? Everyone talks about IoT and that sort of thing. So I think just innately the technology platform that 5G delivers, I believe is going to make this whole notion of crowdsourced journalism a reality, right? But also, I think mixed reality is really compelling, and I've seen some demos, from Qualcomm and others, and with respect to first responders, firefighters, police officers,
mhm.
that sort of thing. You're our expert, resident expert at the firm on that. Would love to hear your take on where you see that headed.
So I think I've seen some public safety applications. Almost all of them have been around search and rescue, or firefighting. I think it was called the GoldenEye. Verizon had it,
Yeah.
and it was for helping find people in fires. Um, but I think that when it comes to mixed reality, um, I think that there's something about actually, and there have been experiences that have already been made that kind of help people understand emotionally, and basically mixed reality, especially VR specifically, you can create a documentary or an experience that lets you live the life of somebody else in their shoes from their
Hmm.
perspective.
Hmm.
And there have been a couple, mixed reality experiences out there that have let people, experience a day in the life of somebody else. And I
Hmm.
think, I think a lot of people really need to have that kind of exposure. And by having mixed reality, I think it really helps um, people be able to disseminate this content
Yeah.
and to experience it at the same time. Because there's nothing like, you can't really walk in somebody's shoes unless you walk in their shoes. And I think mixed reality is the best way of doing that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's going to be a thing that will continue to move forward in the future. And 5G enables mixed reality by just allowing for faster download speeds and more consistent streams. Because the reality is, right now content isn't really a download kind of experience.
Right.
Almost everything is streamed, and um, streams need stability. They need latency, and they need just pure raw speed to maintain a high quality connection.
Yeah.
And if an experience isn't being streamed to you at the right bit rate in a stable manner, it's immersion breaking. And if you break immersion, it kind of ruins the point of doing it to begin with.
Yeah.
So I think it's something to consider. The AR applications are mostly enterprise right now, but I could totally see someone creating like a protest app where you can open a map and see where the protests are happening around you.
Hmm.
And that can organize, locations and times, and at the same time, also allow public safety to be aware of, who needs to be protected, and what kind of a presence needs to be there to make sure that everything stays safe and peaceful, just like the
Yeah.
one I went to yesterday.
Yeah, no, those are great examples. And I mean, you did a great job of highlighting, kind of both sides of the coin. Given the need for supporting peaceful protest,
Yep.
5G really will be impactful from both the citizen perspective as well as from the law enforcement perspective. So,
Yeah, and if you look at like what's happening with 5G right now, the expectation is that both, you know, the police and fire as well as regular consumers are going to be sharing a lot of the same 5G networks.
right.
I think a perfect example of that is T-Mobile, right? They're
Hmm.
they're going to offer um, free service to first responders
Right.
um,
We talked about
for
that
the
a few
next
weeks ago.
10
Yeah.
years. Yeah, we mentioned it
Yeah.
earlier episodes. But the next 10 years will basically be free for any first responders, and they're going to be using 5G. So
Hmm.
I think the use cases for 5G go both ways.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's very promising.
Yeah. Well, another great conversation with you this week, my friend, as I sit here in Florida, in the Florida Keys. Why don't you take us home?
Sure. We hope our viewers and listeners found this week's topics interesting. If anyone out there has any topics they'd like us to cover, please feel free to reach out to us on social media or send us an email. We're on Twitter. On Twitter, Will is at Willtown Tech, and I'm at Anshel Sog. We hope that you have a great weekend, and please tune in again next time.